So let's talk about generative AI. It's changing everything, right? We're building these incredible, revolutionary products. But, and this is a big but, there's a catch: the costs. They can just spiral out of control, and they're catching even the most seasoned cloud teams completely off guard. So let's dive in and figure out how we can tame this cost beast.
You know, this quote just hits the nail on the head. It perfectly captures the challenge we're all facing. On one hand, it feels like we're in this massive race to innovate with AI, but on the other, we just can't ignore the often shocking financial reality that comes along for the ride. It's this constant balancing act, right? Between building these amazing new features and, not blowing up the budget. So the big question is, why are these costs such a surprise? Well, a lot of the time, it actually starts with a pretty clever trick of the market.
And here's the strategy they use. To get everybody hooked, a lot of these AI vendors will offer their services at these ridiculously low, sometimes almost free prices to start. It's a classic loss leader. And it works. It drives massive adoption, it helps them grab market share. But what it's really doing is hiding the true cost. The cost that really kicks in once you're locked into their ecosystem and you start to scale.
Okay, so if we're going to get a grip on these costs, we absolutely have to understand the fundamental unit of measurement in this new AI world. And it's not what you might think. It's not words, it's not characters. It's something called the token.
So what exactly is a token? The easiest way to think about it is like a piece of a word. A large language model, or LLM, doesn't read "hello world" the way we do. It might see "hello" as one token and "world" as a second one. Sometimes, a single long word could be broken up into several tokens. These little pieces are the absolute basic building blocks for everything the model does.
And this is why tokens are so important. They are, quite literally, the currency you're paying with. Every single token in your prompt, that's your input, and every token the model generates in its response, the output, it all has a price tag attached. It really is that simple. More tokens, higher bill. Just look at this example. It's pretty wild. Changing a prompt from "please be concise in your response" down to just "be concise" cuts the token count by more than half. Now, that seems small, right? But imagine that tiny change scaled across millions of API calls a day. The cost savings are, well, they're enormous. So the takeaway here is crucial. How you write your prompts has a direct, and I mean significant, impact on your final bill.
But here's where it gets really interesting. The costs, they don't just add up. Oh no, they multiply, especially as our AI systems get more and more sophisticated. So let's take a look at how this happens. We're going to climb what I like to call the complexity ladder. We're going to walk through 4 key levels of AI architecture. We'll start with the basics and build our way up to the really complex stuff. And what you'll see is how the cost profile just changes, sometimes dramatically, at every single step. All right, level 1. This is the simplest stuff, basic LLM workflows. Think of a simple chatbot. Here, the cost is super straightforward. It's all about the number of tokens you process. The more you write and the more the model writes back, the more you're going to pay. Simple as that. And what about using one of those bigger, more powerful models? Well, that's kind of like putting premium fuel in your car. It gets the job done, but it's way more expensive for every single token. Okay, let's climb to the next rung on the ladder. Retrieval Augmented Generation, or RAG for short. I love this analogy. RAG is like giving your LLM a library card. It can go look up external information. Now, this makes the answers way more accurate and useful, but you guessed it, it introduces a whole new set of costs. Suddenly, you're paying for things like vector database storage, for generating embeddings, which are basically numerical fingerprints for your data. And of course, for all those extra tokens you're now stuffing into the prompt as context.
Next up, we've got AI agents. Now, these are a total game changer because they can perform multi-step tasks all on their own. But that autonomy, it can be a real double-edged sword for your budget. See, a single request from a user could trigger a whole chain of LLM calls as the agent thinks its way through a problem. It might also call out to external tools that have their own API fees. And the biggest risk, the one that keeps people up at night, an agent getting stuck in a runaway infinite loop, just making calls over and over and over again, and racking up an insane bill in a matter of minutes.
And that brings us to the very top of our ladder, agentic AI. This is where multiple agents start working together. And here, we're not just talking about costs, we're talking about a cost iceberg.
Seriously, those LLM API fees you see on your cloud bill, that's just the tiny, tiny tip. The real expense, and we're talking sometimes 5 to 10 times higher, is all hidden below the surface. It's the massive effort of integrating these systems, the constant maintenance, and the absolutely critical human oversight you need to make sure the whole thing doesn't go off the rails.
Okay, I know, that all sounded a little scary. But don't worry, there is a proven methodology for getting all of this under control. It's called FinOps, and its whole purpose is to bring financial accountability to the chaos of the cloud.
So the FinOps lifecycle is really built on 3 simple core ideas. First, you have to inform. That means making costs visible to everyone, not just the finance team. Second, you optimize. This is all about making your systems more efficient and cutting out waste. And finally, you operate. That means running everything continuously with real governance and control in place.
Now, when we apply that optimize phase specifically to AI, we get some really powerful tactics. For example, don't use the biggest, baddest, most expensive model if a smaller, cheaper one does the job just fine. That's called model right-sizing. We already saw how prompt engineering, just being brief, can save a ton of money. Caching common answers, that's a total no-brainer. Why would you pay to generate the same answer twice? And finally, rate limiting. This is your safety net. It lets you set budgets and guardrails to prevent those terrifying runaway agent loops we talked about.
And I really want you to look at the sheer scale of the savings we're talking about here. This chart shows a couple of OpenAI models. Choosing the right model for the right job isn't some minor tweak. We're talking about a potential 10x cost difference. Seriously, using the big Pro model when the basic one would have worked just fine, that's like taking a private jet to go to the grocery store down the street. It's just a massive, massive waste of money.
So, we spent a lot of time talking about controlling costs, which is super important. But honestly, that's only half the story. The real goal, the ultimate goal, is to connect that cost to actual business value. And to do that, we need to get really good at something called unit economics.
This really is the million-dollar question, isn't it? It's what every product leader, every finance leader is trying to figure out. You get this cloud bill and it's just a long list of expenses. How on earth do you translate that into something that actually matters to the business, like profit, or revenue, or even customer satisfaction?
And that's where unit economics comes in. It's the answer. It's basically a system for measuring the cost and the revenue of a single fundamental business action. So instead of getting lost in the total bill, we zoom in and focus on the marginal cost. We start asking questions like, what does it cost us to serve just one more user? Or, what's the cost to analyze one more transaction? Or, in our case, what does it truly cost to generate one more AI answer?
And you can see how this works in practice for all kinds of businesses. A video conferencing company, they're tracking their cost per active user. A rideshare company, it's all about the cost per ride. For us with AI features, that key unit metric might be the cost to summarize a document, or the cost to handle one customer support question. See, once you know your unit cost, that's when you can finally, truly calculate your return on investment.
So I'm going to leave you with this one final thought. It is so easy to be blown away by what generative AI can do. The capabilities are just astounding, right? But the real challenge, the thing that separates a cool tech demo from a sustainable business, is figuring out what each of those amazing capabilities is actually worth.